Thank you for joining me on this last segment of the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast to revisit one of our ongoing favorite topics on this show, the Dallas Cowboys. I've talked a lot about Dak Prescott, their owner, Jerry Jones, Vice President Stephen Jones. Now it's CeeDee Lamb's turn. You could argue their best player last year along with Micah Parsons, but CeeDee had a historical year for the Dallas Cowboys, broke a good amount of records, Cowboys records in that season, made first-team All-Pro, was in the Pro Bowl. One of the best years for him, and it's great that the Cowboys have that sort of receiver on their team. The bad part is now, on how you interpret it, is because it all filters into this situation now with contracts for their three biggest players, Dak Prescott, CeeDee, and Micah. Having Micah play on such a high level on his rookie deal still and not having extended him when you could have last year is great, but again, it bites you because now when you could have gone for cheaper last year when he was eligible, now you're surely going to have to pay something close to a Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, who are also getting close to that negotiation period. More so for Jamar Chase. Justin Jefferson is already in that period trying to negotiate that with the Vikings. So now it's going to cost more for the Dallas Cowboys. This is the fifth year, final year for CeeDee Lamb on his rookie deal, like I mentioned. The Cowboys picked up his fifth-year option last year. Now, Dallas is scheduled to start their Phase 1 workouts next week on April 15th. Those are still voluntary workouts. Coaches, everyone on the staff expects, most players to show up. But with this now carrying over into the offseason workouts now, some people are starting to begin to speculate that it could be heading into holdout sort of territory with CeeDee Lamb. According to the Dallas Morning News, yesterday, CeeDee Lamb is not expected to attend the voluntary workouts starting next Monday. He could even hold out into training camp, is what was reported by the Dallas Morning News. Lamb, like I mentioned, became extension eligible last year. But the reports around that whole situation dating back to that year was that the Cowboys didn't really push very hard back then either to extend CeeDee Lamb. It's starting to become a trend now with the Cowboys, and it's not a great trend to add to the reputation that you have. More often than not, the Cowboys usually pay their stars. Jerry Jones pays his guys that he really values, really thinks can contribute to what he's building, what he has built with the Cowboys, I should say. But along with eventually paying and eventually, really, in all honesty, paying a lot more than he should have, that is one of the trends that is starting to develop with the Cowboys that I am not really a big fan of it. Waiting too long is one of them with Jerry Jones and these players, waiting too long to extend their big stars, Jerry's guys. And by doing that, you ultimately end up paying more. With Dak Prescott now waiting a bit too much, having the season that he did last year, you're going to have to pay him more. He's going to want more, like all the reports have said, up to $50, $60 million I think he wanted per year. He hasn't come out and said that it is true, but it wouldn't surprise a lot of people that he wants that because he had one of his best years. CeeDee now most likely, again, had a decent year 2 years ago, didn't get an extension. You would let him play this final year or second to last year, this past season, and he goes crazy. First team All-Pro. Now he needs money like a top 5 receiver up in that $30 million per year range that Tyreek Hill had. He's not going to be the top earner, most likely. That's probably going to go to Justin Jefferson. But you're going to have CeeDee Lamb looking at Jefferson and how his production has gone. Similar numbers just off of this past year. Why would he not think he needs as much money as Justin Jefferson when he almost has better, if not the same sort of stats as Justin Jefferson, and how valuable he is to the Cowboys? It wouldn't be out of the realm for CeeDee to think that he needs to be paid like a top guy. Then, if you look at other situations, contract situations that have worked out with the Cowboys, Another trend is that they pay players coming off of injuries, really, and they overpay with some of these guys. Michael Gallup, Terrence Steele. It wasn't so bad. Terrence Steele, they paid him after an ACL injury, and he has been reliable for the most part, but they did pay him a lot of money. Michael Gallup, they paid him a good amount of money, and now he's not even on the team. They had to release him to alleviate some of that salary cap stronghold that they got themselves into with these high price deals. So they have to let him go, and now he's a free agent that you paid all this money to. And they've also been known to sign players at low value for positions that are of low value, paying players too early at low value, not high compensation sort of positions. Like Ezekiel Elliott, they gave him a big contract, and he's also now a free agent again, trying to find his way on a new team this year. And you think back to the time when he was with the Cowboys and they gave him that deal. Was it smart to pay him so early at a running back position? I've said on this show that I'm not a fan of the way it's trending, but the way that the Cowboys knew that this whole running back market was sort of panning out and they still gave him that much money. I don't know how much per year, but still, with that deal with Zeke, it hasn't worked out now. In hindsight, you look back to Jalen Smith is another one. He came in off of a bad knee injury, had some production in some years with the Dallas Cowboys, but when he signed a deal, he is now currently, you look at his situation now, he is a free agent, hasn't been a significant part of a team in some time now. So all of that wraps up in a cycle that the Cowboys just constantly seem to find themselves in. Zach Martin, I want to say, is another player that is also in the last year of his deal, this year or next year. So another significant part of your team that you have to figure out. Are you ready to move on from Zach Martin as well? All of these things tie in together when you're talking about the Cowboys and these players, because instead, now, if there is a holdout with CeeDee Lamb, if he does decide to go this route, which it has come out recently through an interview with TMZ or just speaking to TMZ, whenever, yesterday or today, CeeDee Lamb has said that he will be with the Dallas Cowboys this year, but he didn't really specify in what aspect. I think they asked him when the season starts, and he said, yeah, he'll be in Dallas, but he didn't mention anything about training camp, OTAs, mandatory minicamp. He didn't mention anything like that. To avoid fines, he can be there, but he doesn't have to participate in any of the drills or practices where he could get injured, and there's that risk, so he holds that leverage over the Dallas Cowboys. It's a strategic move that has most likely worked out for the players that have decided to go this route. You look at Chris Jones, his was a bit more of a serious holdout, holding out into the season until the Chiefs eventually gave him that one-year deal for a good amount of money. Then they've extended him this offseason. That worked out for Chris Jones. I'm not saying CeeDee Lamb is heading that way, or I'm projecting him to be that extreme about it, but it is just a strategic and a smart move for CeeDee Lamb to get the ball rolling a little bit, because the biggest thing with the Cowboys and these contracts that just start piling up, they're almost like a shield or a cover-up for the real problems that they still haven't addressed. By stacking all these problems and trying to figure out their biggest stars, because that's also very significant, by doing that, they just add to the list of problems. Once they figure out Micah Parsons, once they figure out CeeDee Lamb, and maybe Dak Prescott, you still have this long list of defensive line help that you need, defensive back help that you need. Stephon Gilmore, probably your best cornerback last year, is still a free agent. You still have him to figure out. Leighton Vander Esch just retired, so you need linebackers. You need spots on that offensive line. Another wide receiver to add on to CeeDee Lamb to complement that offense, as well as running back. When are the Cowboys going to get to all of these positions that they need to fill out if they're stacking up CeeDee Lamb's contract, Micah Parsons' contract, Dak's contract? Trying to figure out and negotiate with that takes up a lot of time which frankly they don't have if they want to build out this roster to the best of the ability that they can. I know it's only April 9th now, a long time from playing football, from being week 1. But again, the way that the Cowboys have built this reputation of taking their time, a methodical, long time to figure out all these things, you can't help but think it's just going to carry on into August, September. And when are they going to find the time? They've not done anything in free agency. When are they going to find the time to add to this roster that desperately needs help in a very competitive NFC that's only getting better and trending up, with all these teams getting better, like the Falcons? The Bucks are no joke. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. The Bears are getting better with some of the trades that they've made. The Lions are there. The Niners, the Eagles, all seemingly getting better, where the Cowboys are still stuck in first gear, not really doing anything as of now. They're always going to use the excuse of salary cap and not having enough cap to work around it and get all these players. But if they would have figured out some of these extensions earlier to benefit them, they'd have a bit more wiggle room with their salary cap to figure out some of these issues. Now it's starting to back up on them, and they're not going to, in my estimation, they're not going to have enough time to figure out every single one of these needs and fill out a competitive roster. But we've seen this already for a few years from the Cowboys. It's not really anything new. And it could be coming to a point where you're going to have a roster turnover of sorts, and it could be looking different in the near future for the Cowboys if they don't pick up the pace a little bit with this team. The Cowboys are the Cowboys. You know, I say all these things, but it just turns out the same way as it always does every year. I'm hoping for a change this year, but we shall see where Jerry Jones take this season. But in saying that, I have run out of time on today's episode. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode of the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the show, as well as both Sports Network and podcast networks on YouTube. Make sure to also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok for more of this network's content. If you want to see more of me and the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, check out the YouTube channels, the GSMC Sports Network channel, and the Podcast Network channel for YouTube shorts that are posted on there daily. You have the full recorded live shows that are all on there as well, on top of all the individual segments that are cut up into individual videos if you want to go back and watch a specific segment, or if you missed out on a segment that you really wanted to watch. They're all on there on both channels. As always, tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more NFL and football conversations with me, your host, Manny Maradiege. Thank you guys again for joining me, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go